Committee will come to order. I'm really pleased to welcome our second panel on this topic today regarding the threats of China to American agriculture. Our first witness for the second panel of our hearing today is Mr. Josh Gackel, who is the president of the American Soybean Association. Our second witness for this panel is Mr. Nova Daly, who brings extensive public and private sector experience, numerous agencies, the Senate, and the CFIUS Committee, all involved on national security matters. Our third and final witness for this panel is a great friend of the committee and of the industry, Ambassador Kip Tom, the former United States Ambassador to the United Nations Agencies for Food and Agriculture. Thank you, our witnesses, for joining us today. We'll now proceed to your testimony. You each have 5 minutes. The timer in front of you will count down to 0, at which point your time is expired, and then that'll be followed by a question and answer period after all three of you have spoken. So, Mr. Gackel, please begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson and Ranking Member Scott and members of the House Agriculture Committee. And thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Josh Gackel, and I'm a soybean farmer from North Dakota, where I farm with my dad and brother on a third-generation family farm. This year, I also have the privilege of serving as president of the American Soybean Association, which represents U.S. soybean farmers across 30 states. Soybeans are the largest U.S. agricultural export, and robust international trade is a priority for our farmers. U.S. soy is actively working in 112 markets across the world to introduce new customers to our high-quality, high-protein crop. Opening new markets is just one step, followed by time, attention, and long-term relationship maintenance to ensure market access. Our trading partners are all critical to the success of U.S. soy farmers, but no export destination compares to China. In the last marketing year, the export value of U.S. soybeans totaled over $32 billion. China accounted for nearly $19 billion of this total. For perspective, the next largest destination by value totaled approximately $3 billion. The sheer scale of China's demand for soybeans cannot be replaced. In farmer terms, 1 in every 3 rows grown in the U.S. is shipped to China to fill demand. During the 2018 trade war, U.S. soybean exports to China came to a halt. In an estimate of the impact of retaliatory tariffs on U.S. agriculture, the USDA found that the value of U.S. exports to China decreased 76% from 2017 to 2018. It also estimated the trade war cost U.S. agriculture over $27 billion. Soybeans accounted for 71% of these annualized losses. This has had major consequences on the competitive landscape for U.S. soybean growers. As a result of the trade war, Brazil ramped up production to meet Chinese demand. Beyond capturing additional market share in China, Brazil was prompted to increase its land area in agriculture production. In the 2017 and 2018 marketing year, Brazil overtook the United States as the world's largest producer of soybeans. Our farmers now face increasing competition with Brazil in every export market, not just China. The trade war also damaged our reputation as a reliable provider of soybeans and soy products in global markets. The Section 301 tariffs and the retaliatory trade actions have jeopardized our place in these markets and damaged in-country relationships developed over decades. At times, our customers looked elsewhere for their needs to avoid trade risk or excess duties. As the United States considers actions to protect our national security interests, we must also maintain and protect our economic and trade interests as well. Soybean growers need predictability and certainty that we will retain market access in China. My written testimony provides 3 policy recommendations. Number 1, reject legislative attempts to repeal or modify China's permanent normal trade relation status. ASA is very concerned that revoking PNTR for China would have severe consequences. In 2018, U.S. soybean exports to China were among the first agricultural commodities targeted for retaliatory tariffs. And if past this prologue, it is entirely possible that U.S. soybeans would be impacted yet again. Number 2, pass a comprehensive farm bill this year that meets the needs of U.S. agriculture. The new farm bill should include additional investment into trade promotion programs that are critical to the long-term success of U.S. soy abroad. Funding levels for the Market Access Program and the Foreign Market Development Program have been largely unchanged for decades, even though demand for these programs has increased. The new Farm Bill should also include improvements to the farm safety net. During the trade war, U.S. soybean farmers experienced firsthand the insufficient farm safety net under the current Farm Bill. Very simply, we need better tools to help farmers in times of economic disruption and greater resources to expand and diversify trade markets. And finally, number 3, exercise congressional oversight authority to press the administration to re-engage in negotiations for bilateral and multilateral free trade agreements. The U.S. was once a leader in establishing new free trade agreements, but our last new FTA entered into force in 2012, despite the U.S. having negotiated the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's over 10 years of inactivity for codified market expansion that could have helped U.S. agriculture, while at the same time our international competitors have worked to gain increased market access. So thank you again as a farmer from North Dakota, and on behalf of the American Soybean Association, it's a privilege to be with you, and thank you for this opportunity to share the perspective of U.S. soybean farmers with you. I look forward to your questions, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Cacklin, thank you so much for your leadership and your testimony today. Now, please recognize Mr. Daly. Please begin when you're ready.
Chairman Thompson, Ranking Member Scott, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss this critical and timely matter. I'm honored and humbled to be before you today among the exceptional panelists that you've assembled. The views I share are my own and informed by my service in the U.S. government, where I was fortunate enough to serve along colleagues in the National Security Council, Commerce Department, Senate, and Treasury, where I ran the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. I got to witness firsthand for many years the actions of China as it conducted and directed actions through its businesses, nefariously through third parties. Given that experience and years of private sector helping U.S. companies address competition and malicious activity by Chinese entities, the focus of my testimony is the national and economic security considerations involved in Chinese acquisitions of U.S. agriculture and agricultural-related business and supply chains. That said, as a baseline, and as my witness testimony relays, recent laws implemented by China effectively compel any Chinese entity to act at the direction of the Chinese state, i.e. the Communist Party of China. So the question before the committee is really, what do you as leaders of this country believe that the United States should accept regarding ownership and control by the Communist Party of China over U.S. assets of agricultural land, production, and supply chains? Problematically, as you know, there are serious gaps in current federal laws and reporting that expose our military and critical infrastructure to vulnerabilities and increasingly impact U.S. farmers, ranchers, and producers as they face challenges from state-driven Chinese actors. Thwarted and planned Chinese investments like the Fufang wet corn mill plant in North Dakota and land and farm acquisitions in Oregon, Texas, Nevada, in close proximity to point-of-the-spear U.S. military bases and nuclear facilities is not coincidental. Given China's regional and global military intents, vectors that provide intelligence are constantly being sought, where they provide locations for cranes, silos, windmills, or farms above or adjacent to military or sensitive facilities or telecommunication towers or underground cables. Brazen IP violations of U.S. seed, GMOs, and other agricultural technologies have placed at risk the nation's continued agricultural technology leadership. There are ample cases of Chinese agents being and having been caught attempting to take such technologies. China's perpetual dependence on agricultural imports ensures that their goals for independence from foreign dependencies will remain a priority. Further, China's massive cyber warfare divisions, notably PLA Unit 61398, have the capability to disrupt key American infrastructure critical to our agriculture. This includes power and water utilities as well as communication and transportation systems. China's global acquisitions and supply chain monopolies, including Internet of Things technologies, continue to expand unchecked and unaddressed. We have significant dependencies on parts, electronics, and other inputs to our agricultural machinery. The nutritional needs of our livestock is also under significant dependence, as well as inputs to pesticides and herbicides. China is also acquiring companies as export platforms for Chinese market, globally and in the United States. Such diversion of product can have sizable negative impacts on U.S. producers. Further, China's acquisition of global agricultural storage and logistic assets and trading markets should be examined. Lastly, given the advances in farm technologies, our reliance on supply chains that provide nefarious Chinese actors kill switches to our machinery, our eyes, or our production, these all are matters that should be addressed. But there are solutions. Federal laws addressing foreign ownership should be considered, changes to them, given the legal vulnerabilities of state-to-state restrictions. There are adjustments that can be made to the jurisdiction of CFIUS to better respond to Chinese farm and other agricultural acquisitions. As led by this committee, the GAO has provided solutions for better foreign farm ownership reporting standards, and a number of members have pointed to additional solutions in reporting. Stronger cybersecurity vigilance championed by members here is also critical, and there are a host of other possible solutions in the face of funding challenges that can ensure our nation remains vigilant on applying solutions to the uninvited, unwarranted, and increasingly sophisticated threats that certain actors present to our nation and food security. That concludes my opening remarks, and I look forward to hearing from you and addressing, to the best of my ability, any questions on matters you wish to raise.
Sir, thank you very much. Appreciate your experience, significant experience, and your input. Now I'm pleased to recognize Ambassador Tom. Please proceed with 5 minutes of testimony whenever you're ready.
Honorable Chairman Thompson, Ranking Member Scott, and distinguished members of the House Committee on Agriculture. As a lifelong farmer and a former ambassador to the Rome-based UN Food and Agriculture Organizations, I would like to share my perspective with you today on the threat of China to America's food supply and agricultural systems. I add, the world is watching us today. Americans need to understand that our national security is dependent upon our food security. Americans cannot any longer take agriculture and our food systems for granted. Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party recognize the importance of food in relation to their position of power in the world. The CCP's goal is to reshape the world order through their control of the BRIC nations, global trade, and the Belts and Road Initiative, all to attain economic superiority over the United States and our allies. To meet these goals, they are strategically growing their agriculture production domestically and globally at the expense of the United States. I will address a number of these risks by the CCP that we could deal with immediately. First, cybersecurity. Threats to the United States agriculture are diverse and can have significant impacts on the industry. Some of the key concerns include intellectual property theft. The Chinese have targeted proprietary farming data, such as crop yield data, seeding or fertilizer algorithms, breeding information, and biotechnology research, which will lead to a loss of competitive advantage for the United States. I have seen this firsthand in the seed production industry. Several Chinese nationals were stealing proprietary seeds in our area from production fields and shipping them back to China. These Chinese nationals were caught and convicted, but how many were not caught? According to the American Seed Trade Association, it takes 5 to 15 years to develop a seed variety at a cost of over $100 million. It also estimates that the annual value of agricultural seed production in the U.S. is over $11 billion annually. Data-driven attacks, precision agriculture rely heavily on this data, as examples like farms like ours produce over a terabyte of data annually that is exclusive to our farm and is a major driver to our sustainability and productivity. We are at extreme risk of the theft or attack of this data, which could alter or disrupt our systems and lead to incorrect farming decisions and likely harm yields. There have been numerous attempts also by the Chinese to steal this data, but fortunately they have been caught and convicted. Again, how many were not caught? Infrastructure attacks. Critical infrastructure from the electrical grid to supply chain logistics and broadband could be targeted in disrupting our food supply. When we consider ransomware, farming operations could be halted by ransomware attacks, demanding payments to restore access to essential digital systems. And we all can remember the ransom attacks on JBS several years ago, which disrupted the entire supply chain from livestock production operations to the consumer's dinner table. The $11 million ransom was paid, but the cost of JBS and the agricultural supply chain was many multiples greater. Espionage. The Chinese are creative in their attempts to steal as much information as possible from as many sources as possible, from the USDA FSA offices to our industries, to cranes in our ports, and from any conduit that flows data or conversations. Although the U.S. government is aware of these threats, we need to strengthen protection for America's food supply and economic advantage. This includes identifying vulnerabilities and improving the protective measures of government and private entities against cyber threats. Next, portions of our supply chain have been offshored, including several critical building blocks for our food system, such as crop protection products and crop nutrients. These are the basic elements that nourish crops, protect them from weeds, insects, and diseases. A recent USDA supply chain report indicates that 70% of the crop protection products that are produced globally, most from China. Another 40% of the world's phosphorus supply originates in China. Imagine if they shut off our supply. Without crop protection products or crop nutrients, yields will decrease, requiring substantially more land to maintain current production levels. The economic impact to farmers, consumers, and our nation would have devastating consequences. This would lead to higher consumer prices and food insecurity in the United States and around the world. This is a national security threat to the United States and our allies. Therefore, the absence of crop protection and crop nutrient products would have a complex and far-reaching impact. The answer is we need to allow for reasonable and durable regulations to prevail to allow the United States to bring this manufacturing capacity back home while supporting those that are already manufacturing these critical products here at home in the U.S. to feed the Americans and the world. In summary, whether the impact is from cybersecurity threats or from minimized access to crop nutrients or crop protection products, the Chinese are strategically attempting to build their dominance in the world over food systems. These moves are coming at the expense of American innovation, but are amplified by our burdensome regulatory environment. The people in these chambers on this Hill need to take action to bring our supply chains home, protect our innovation, and increase our funding for research and development. Now is the time for a national strategy for our agricultural and food systems. If not, America could once again face food insecurity like we did 100 years ago. It is time to stop taking agriculture and our food systems for granted. Again, the world is watching. I yield the floor back to you.